Yes, this is now tarot lesson number 129. And you may have noticed the beginning screenshot was different because I have this little caption. It says, how to know what to say. Because I think with the tarot, it's not so much learning what a card means, but it's more somebody's asking a question and the card is the answer or points to the answer or gives you an idea about what the answer ought to be. And so the point of all these lessons and all the rest of it is so that we know what to say. So when somebody asks a question and we pick a card, rather than look at it blankly and think, the Eight of Cups, what do I say? What does it mean? The question is more, they've asked a question. This is the answer. What am I going to say to them about what to do or how to understand what's going on or what to do differently, for instance, that will give you an answer to your question or give you a solution to the problem. And that's why I'm calling this one how to know what to say, which will mean that if you've got ideas on how to know what to say, you can be more comfortable. Because a couple of people indicated that they'd like to be more comfortable with reading cards. And I think part of the answer to that is know what to say or figure out how you're going to know what it is to say. So today also is about kings and queens, because somebody asked in the light of the past one about aces and pages, they asked for something about kings and queens. And other people have indicated that they'd like more about court cards. So kings and queens. I think because of what I want to say, I think we're only going to do kings today and we'll do queens next time. But here we've got, the first thing I wrote down was chess. In chess, if you know how the pieces move, the king can only move one square in any direction, but he can only move into a square that is empty, and he can't move into check. So the king is limited in what he can do. He's got great power. And a king of pentacles, cups, batons, and swords, a king has power and influence, but they're also limited in what they can do. Somebody once, I think it was Margaret Thatcher that people hate, she once said that just because a politician gives a speech, it doesn't mean that anything has happened. And in the same kind of a way, a king can talk big and promise all sorts of things, but nothing's actually happened, even though the king spoke. And this is, in a way, shown by a chessboard because the king can only move one square in any direction. Whereas a queen, if I can find a queen, there's the queen, if you know chess, here's the queen of batons. The queen can move diagonally as well as horizontally and vertically. And the queen can move as many spaces as she wants, or as many spaces that are free. She can't jump over pieces, but she can move in multiple different directions quickly. So the king, in its own way, is about slow and steady development and progress, whereas a queen can be an awful lot faster in what she can accomplish, what she can achieve. And that's something for you to consider when you're looking at a king and a queen. Or when the question is, what do I do about this situation? And the king is the answer, then take it one step at a time. It's what you're going to say to the person. Whereas if it's a queen, have a big plan or have something that will enable you to go a distance to the solution or to move a distance away from the problem. You can do it if you're represented by a queen, but you can't do it as easily if you're represented by a king. And you think about the king and the court. The king's got his advisors and his servants and his possessions and all the rest of it. And that was one of the things about the queen. Apparently the queen can move quickly because she produces the children. So she's got she's more important, more valuable in a way than the king, because the queen produces the offspring that keeps the royal line going. And the king maybe makes it possible, but the queen does the work, and the queen makes it happen more so than the king does. And again, these are ideas that you can apply to kings and queens to understand more about what a court card represents. Again, thinking about what are you going to say to the person? How do you behave? How do you act if you're represented by a king or if you're represented by a queen? So that was point number one. Point number two has to do with numbers. And I've got my piece of paper here. So king is King. And I'm going to use Cairo's numbers with this that I've used before. Queen, Queen. So K is 2153 and queen is 16555. So 2 and 1's 3 and 5 is 8 and 3 is 11. And 1, 7, 22. And interestingly enough, a queen is 2 times the king. So the king is 11 and the queen is 22. So does this mean that the king has got one direction he can go in, whereas the queen is stronger because she can go in 2 different directions, or she can go in more than one direction at the same time, but she's got more options than the king does. So again, if the king of swords has got 1 or 2 things he can do, the queen of swords has got multiple possibilities. So twice as many options for the queen as for the king. Also, the 11th major trump, you can argue about justice or strength. I like to think about strength. G-T-H, strength. So the king is strength in its own way, and is strong and forceful and dominating, maybe domineering if it's upside down, whereas the queen is 2 times strength. So does this mean that the queen has 2 types of strength? And you think about the difference between men and women. Men are good at certain things. Women are good at an awful lot more. So, and think about women and raising children. I'm going to get to that. I think I have to look at queens in the next video. And at this point, we'll look at kings. But that's interesting, I think, that king adds up to 11 and queen adds up to 22. So the king, any king, in its own way, is showing strength in that particular area. Strength when it comes to struggle, with swords. Strength when it comes to money, with pentacles. Strength when it comes to being enterprising or taking the initiative or running things. And strength when it comes to emotions, with the King of Cups, so that you're emotionally strong, that you're not easily thrown by something going wrong. Because sometimes people will, if something goes wrong, they'll say things like, oh, well, it's not meant to be. I personally can't stand that attitude of it's not meant to be, because that's like just not making an effort. You're just thinking you're doomed, and there's always something you can do to make a change, to change things even slightly. And if you change the cause, you automatically change the effect. But anyway, strength, the king, but the queen's got 2 types of strength. So maybe she's with the Queen of Batons here. What 2 types of strength could that be? She's enterprising as well as inspirational. So she comes up with ideas, but she also encourages other people or gets good feedback from them. So she's inspiring and gets other people to emulate what she's doing. So she's got good ideas and big ideas and is going to achieve things. The people who associate with her are also going to find that they've got inner strength that they didn't realize they had. Because the Queen is 22. So I did this earlier and I made a little diagram because, okay, one thing is you can't teach yourself astrology. You just can't. And you can't learn much from people who taught themselves. It just doesn't work. There's too much they don't know. So you can, on the other hand, teach yourself the tarot, because the tarot is about people and living and life on earth, whereas astrology, because it's dealing with planets and the zodiac and fixed stars and all the rest of it, it's out there, it's in the cosmos, whereas the tarot is life on earth. And that's why we can teach ourselves, because we're here and we've got our own experiences and our own learning that takes place based on what happens to us or what we try to do. So what I did was I wrote down king, and I wrote down 4 ideas about the king. The king is IC, that means in charge. So with a king, you're dealing with somebody who is or is not, or wants to be, or would like to be in charge. And that can be what you talk about. Remember, the point of this is, what are you going to say to people? So maybe with a king of anything, you talk about the importance of being in charge, or the best way to go about being in charge of other people, or being in charge of yourself. So the king can represent being in charge. What have I got? Orders. The king gives orders. So that a king, when it comes up in a reading, can be about the importance of, or the value of, somebody being in control and giving orders. And when the king is upright, the orders make sense and they will be obeyed. Whereas with the king upside down, people are going to be disobedient. They're not going to like what they're told to do, and they're going to resist doing it. Orders. So you can think in your own experience about how a king gives orders, and the kind of order that they would give, or the way they would go about passing on instructions to other people, because orders can be instructions as well. So order doesn't have to be that you will do this whether you want to or not, and my word is the law. It can be, how do you instruct other people to do something to get to a particular destination? And so kings can be being in charge. They can also be about giving orders or giving instruction. And then I wrote down obeyed. So ideally, the king is going to be obeyed. And the king upside down can mean people don't do as you tell them, or people don't want to do what you tell them. You're not obeyed. You ought to be obeyed, maybe, or you think you should be obeyed, but other people don't. I'm thinking of a football team, the captain of the football team, and maybe people just don't like the boss, or they don't like the attitude of the captain, so they don't cooperate and play along. And then I've also got respected at the top here. And so ideally, the king is respected. Maybe not political kings, because the King of England, King Charles at the moment, lots of people have no time for Charles. But think of Elvis Presley, the king of rock, or the king of singing, or Michael Jackson, the king of pop. So again, you can argue against Michael Jackson, against Elvis, but an awful lot of people held them in high esteem. So the king can be about being respected, and that might be an important thing to touch on when you're giving the answer to the question, or when you're thinking about what to say to the person. That respect can be, being respected can be an important part of the answer, and it can lead you to talk about certain things that you're never going to find in a book, but yet it's important and it's relevant for that questioner at that time. So maybe what you do is you write king in a piece of paper, and you do a brainstorm, and you write down a number of different things that a king suggests to you. And maybe just write it all down and then work with the ideas that you've got here. So I did this thing where there is the idea that, but it's easier to come up with a problem than to come up with a solution. And so what sometimes people do is you figure out what's getting in the way, or what you're doing wrong, and then invert it or reverse it. And that is an interesting approach to things, where you figure out what's not working and then do the opposite. And then you're going to end up with something that has a chance of working. And that can be a king as well, if it's upside down. But I wrote down this. This is the King of Coins. Maybe I'll do that. You're supposed to do that in teaching classes, where you hide what you want so that people don't read what you're not talking about. So I've got the King of Pentacles here, the King of Coins. So the King of Coins is money, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this. Coins is money. So the King of Coins is somebody who is in charge of money, or who's good at doling out money, or who's good with spending money. So if we imagine the opposite of that, it gets you thinking along a different kind of a line. So if the king is upside down, the King of Pentacles is upside down, they're not good with money as a starting point for developing ideas. So if they're not good with money, then what? What does that indicate? What's that about? And I wrote down trust. If you get the King of Cups upside down and you think they're not good with money, can you trust that person? Money is important. And you know that if somebody's bad with money, you can't trust them, or you ought not to trust them to do what they say they're going to do. And this can extend into different areas rather than just to do with money. But with the King of Pentacles upside down, there are problems of trust with this individual. You can't believe them, or you can't trust they're going to do what they say they'll do, or you can't trust the decision that they make. Because some decisions are good, others are bad. And they're obviously bad sometimes. And this person, the King of Pentacles upside down, can't see that it's a bad idea. So with the King of Pentacles upside down, what are you going to talk about? You may talk about trust, or lack of trust, and how you build trust first before you give instruction, before you give orders, with the King of Pentacles upside down. And then what else did I write? Oh, INS. That's short for insurance. So maybe with the King of Pentacles upside down, you talk about having insurance. Because if the King of Pentacles is upside down, he's going to make mistakes. You need to cover yourself. So that if things go badly wrong, you don't suffer that, or you don't suffer as much as you would have if you hadn't had insurance. So the King of Pentacles upside down can make you think, I need insurance, I need to cover myself, or imagine what the losses might be and do what I can to make the losses less serious. So it's a bit like in charge, money, upside down, trust issues. And so it's getting you to make connections and to think things through, and to develop ideas related to this particular card, which means that when the card comes up in a reading, you're going to know what to say. You're going to have ideas about what to talk about. And it's not going to be you having to look in a book for somebody else's meaning and then try to relate that meaning to the answer. If you do this on your own, you will teach yourself, and you will become more comfortable looking at cards generally, as well as you'll be comfortable with court cards. The second bit I did was the King of Cups. So the King of Cups is in control of his emotions. King, in control, Cups, emotions. So the King of Cups is in control of his emotions, whatever that might mean. They're not easily upset. Whereas, and I wrote down temper. So with the King of Cups upside down, you're dealing with somebody who maybe has a bad temper, or who easily gives in to bad temper. So that maybe what you do is you talk about, if it's the questioner represented by this card, how do you get control of your temper, or how do you understand that there's no need to go haywire, as you might do with the King of Cups upside down, because temper can be a problem. Bad temper can be a problem. that they lose control, and so you tell them something to do so that they don't lose their place. And an example that you could give is, there was this woman, Mel Robbins, talked about how if you find yourself getting out of whack, or if you find yourself losing your equilibrium, which is the justice card, and maybe we go back to a king being 11 and you make a connection with justice there. But she talked about how what you do is you count backwards in your mind, you count backwards from 5. So if you recognize you're about to get upset or get frantic, you stop and you think 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. At that point, the act of counting backwards from 5 changes your mental state slightly, and it means you're more likely to make a better decision, or you're not as likely to lose control. So we've got, what have I got here? Upset. So with the King of Cups upside down, or with the King of Cups, they're good at handling situations where other people are upset. So the question is about a family problem. If the King of Cups is there, you can turn to that person for a good solution. Whereas the King of Cups upside down, they're more likely to become upset themselves or to be swayed by upset in other people. And the last word, tiptoe. So with the King of Cups, this is somebody in control of their emotions. Upside down, we all know people where you can't say anything to them. You've got to tiptoe around. And because they're so touchy and so easily upset, you can't be honest and upright and forthright with them. You've got to tiptoe around the subject, or tiptoe around everything, because you know that if you say the wrong thing, even as something innocent, they're going to lose their mind. And so with the King of Cups, we've got the idea of being in control and in charge, but it's upside down and it involves emotion, and that's the kind of thing that can happen with emotion that's gone wrong. That's kind of what I had to say about kings. So next time, by all means leave a comment, but next time we'll look at queens, and I'll do a bit more. It's just that it's kind of a lot. Judgment just came out, okay? So this has been good. It's renewal and revitalizing, and it's going to, if you've been feeling trapped like these people, you're going to be released if you work with the idea of coming up with a few ideas about kings, and then thinking about the kinds of circumstances that relate to those ideas, and what you would say to somebody based on the king of a particular suit coming up. Okay, that was it. I'll talk to you in a few days. Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye.